guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I will be talking about the pros and cons of living in New York City, since I've practically lived in this city for my entire life. I was born and raised in Queens, so I'm here to give you the brutal honest truth about living in the Big Apple. The rents in here are very expensive, and the apartments are pretty disappointing. They're actually very small. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York City is about $3,477. The apartments here are a huge letdown because they're so small. They only have like 2 bedrooms. Some apartments have 1 bedroom and they have a bathroom and a small little kitchen. Most people in New York City share rooms because the apartments are very small, so they divide the rent money. If you want to live in a prestigious New York City apartment, you have to make sure that you're well endowed and you have plenty of money. If you're just an average, ordinary folk like everyone else, then you have to make sure that you get a really good job to pay off your expenses, your rent and your bills. Also, in some parts of New York City, some of the apartments have rodent infestation problems and also like cockroaches. So if you're looking for, you know, hot Caribbean weather, then maybe New York City really isn't for you, because it's super cold from January to probably around April, the beginning of April. It gets really hot probably around the last week of May to the first week of September. So let's talk about dangerous neighborhoods and crime in New York City. New York City has a pretty scandalous past. If you guys have seen films like Taxi Driver, or if you've seen the show The Deuce from HBO, New York City used to be one of the most dangerous cities in the United States about 40 years ago. So just because they cleaned up the streets doesn't mean that there isn't crime, or there isn't like drugs, or there's no gangs, because there still is, unfortunately. There are still certain neighborhoods in certain boroughs in New York City that you should never ever visit, and you really have to be very cautious and on your guard. I'm not going to name all of them, but there's some really terrible neighborhoods that you should steer clear of, especially if you're a tourist or if you're a newbie in New York, and you're bound to get assaulted, you're bound to get mugged, or you're gonna get attacked or you know, raped, so you have to be very careful. The more affluent the neighborhood, the less crime there is, and the less affluent the neighborhood is, the more crime that there is. Another con of living in New York City is that you have to pay taxes. You have to pay state taxes and you have to pay city taxes, and they're pretty high. Don't complain about that. Another con about New York City is the MTA, which is the transportation system in New York City, which is pretty convenient, but it's not always reliable, because on weekends they're always doing construction work. The trains have to be derailed somewhere else, and sometimes there's no service, so you have to be aware of that it's not always reliable, especially during the weekends, because on weekdays, you know, there's regular service, but on the weekends it's pretty difficult to get around. So let's talk about the fights that go on in the subway that a lot of people on World Star Hip Hop like to document on their cell phones, because there's just a lot of fights that go on in the subway and also on the buses as well, and people like to make fools out of themselves, and it's really sad. There's a lot of rude people in New York City, especially in the subways. So I highly recommend that if you're a newbie and you don't know your way around New York City, that you don't stare at other people and just mind your own business, because if you don't, then you're going to get involved in a fight with someone and it's just going to go really bad. There's also a lot of mentally ill people. You're going to see a lot of homeless people on the streets, a lot of bums, and you have the occasional entertainment too that comes along on the subways. There's like people, there's like rappers, there's also like people who play guitar, there's like break dancers, there's also a lot of crazy religious people too. There's also a lot of perverts on the subway, crazy people out there, like a lot of pedophiles, so you really have to be careful, especially during late nights. This is definitely not a city to look for a relationship. Like if you're like a very traditional person, you're like a family oriented person, and you're looking for marriage and you want to have kids and you want to start a family, this is not a very good place for that, because this is like more like a fun city. You know, people just come here from different parts of the world, from different states, and they just come here to party. This is pretty much like a hookup culture type of city. If you're not looking for something serious, then New York City is definitely your place to go. But if you're looking for something serious, then you're going to be really disappointed, because the chances of finding someone to start a family with and to get married to and have children is probably 1 in like a trillion. I'm just saying it like it is. Finding a job in New York City is very difficult because there's a lot of people in here and there's just a lot of competition, so it's going to be really difficult for you to find a job. You have to be like really lucky to be able to get the job of your dreams, because you know this is a city and there's like tons of people and you have to compete with a lot of people to get the same job, and you know it's going to be really difficult. You're going to get a lot of rejections before you get the job of your dreams. It's going to be really difficult. You really have to be patient, and you have to be willing to go through a lot of rejections in order to get yes. Having a car in New York City is unnecessary because you know you have the MTA, you have the convenient transportation system here. You can take the subway or you can take the bus. I think it's wise to own a car in New York City if you live in Long Island, because it's pretty far away. If you live in Long Island, then definitely you need to get a car. But other than that, if you live in the city, you definitely don't need a car, because you're just going to pay a lot of unnecessary parking tickets, and parking in the city is really expensive. So unless you live in Long Island and you want to drive very long distances away from the city, then definitely get a car, and if not, then don't, because it's really a waste of money. And finally, the last con of living in New York City is that it is very difficult to find friends. This is not like a small town where everybody knows each other and everybody knows everybody's business. This is not like that at all. Since you live in the city, everybody lives pretty much, you know, in their own little worlds. Everybody's withdrawn. It's really hard to connect with people because usually New Yorkers are pretty rude. Like in my experience, they're very rude, they're very stuck up, they're not very trustworthy either, they're very judgmental. Their mentality here is like work. They're just not very enthusiastic people. I'm not saying you can't find really good people here, because there are pretty good people here. Not everybody here is bad. Not everybody here is mentally ill or rude. There's some pretty good people here, but you would have to be very lucky to find those people. You have to dig deeper and deeper in order to find like-minded individuals and to find people that are honest and trustworthy. Once you come to visit New York City, you will never be bored because there's tons of attractions that you can go to. That includes the Statue of Liberty, you can go to Times Square, you can go see a Broadway show, you can go to Coney Island, you can go to the Met Museum, you can go to Central Park, you can even go to Hudson Yards because that's the newest attraction there. And there's tons of things to go to in the city. Another pro is the public transportation system, the MTA. Like I said, it's very convenient. You don't have to have a car. You can just take the subway to get around to the other boroughs in the city. You can also take the bus as well. Sometimes it could get a little confusing with all of those, you know, if they give you like a map of the city, if you're a newbie, you're going to be very confused. Even me, like I'm a native New Yorker, and sometimes I get a little confused with all the routes of the subway. But other than that, the subway system here is pretty convenient, and you can go to Manhattan, you can go to Brooklyn, you can go to Queens, you can go to the Bronx, you can go anywhere, but just make sure you don't get lost. Another pro is the food. Now, if I ever decide to leave New York City and to move out of here, one of the things that I definitely will miss is the food, which is the pizza. That's one of the delicacies of New York City, is the classic dollar cheese pizza. And I highly recommend you try original New York City pizza. If you're a newbie or you're a tourist or you want to come here and live here, please try the pizza. It's one of New York City's delicacies. You're never going to starve if you're in New York City because there's like tons of restaurants here. I mean, there's like Italian food, of course, there's like Chinese food, there's Indian food, there's like Mexican food, there's like Colombian food, there's like Dominican food. I mean, there's like tons of food here, tons of like delicacies that you can try out in most of the neighborhoods in New York City, so you're never going to starve. So I highly recommend you try the local eateries here, the local restaurants. Please don't go to the fast food restaurants. If you're a tourist or you're a newbie, please don't do that. Just go to local eateries and see what they have there, and you'll get the most out of your New York City experience. So like I said before, there's always something to do. There's a lot of touristic attractions in New York City that you can go to. And there's also a lot of activities that you can do. Like in any neighborhood in New York City, people are always doing something. Like there's always like film festivals, there's like music festivals, there's like free yoga in Manhattan. That's like a new thing. I'm not very keen on doing yoga in front of millions of people in Times Square, but that's what they're doing now. There's also like parades. There's like a Dominican parade, there's like a Puerto Rican parade, there's like a Mexican parade, there's like a lot of street fairs as well, a lot of parties too. You can go to like nightclubs and have like a party on the roof in Manhattan. There's also like fashion shows. You can also go shopping in the malls. You can also go to the boutiques in Manhattan. If you have a lot of money, you can go and buy over there. Since New York City is a very diverse place, there's like a lot of cultures, and you can definitely learn a lot from people, so you're never going to get bored, and you're definitely going to experience a lot of new things. So if you want to experience new things, I highly recommend you get out of your comfort zone. Like, don't stay at home all the time. Just like go outside and see what's up, what people are doing, and it could definitely be very life-changing for you. Okay, so those are the pros and cons of living in New York City from a native New Yorker, yours truly. I hope I didn't disappoint you guys very much, because I know some of you out there are very curious about New York City and about how people live here. You know, this is a pretty expensive city. Think of it as LA, except it's in the Northeast. The Big Apple is a very fun and exciting city to visit, but definitely not a very nice place to live in. And the reasons for that is because, like I said before, the city is very expensive. You have to work really hard to pay the bills and to pretty much pay your rent and everything. You have to have a really good job to pay all of your expenses. So unless you're rich and you have a trust fund, you can live in New York City all you want. But if you're poor or you're just an average Joe, this isn't going to work out for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment down below and share your thoughts on what you think of New York City. If you have any other questions, please comment down below as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.